Welcome back to Dinner with Jesus. 4 weeks down and 1 to go. I did a wedding on a mountain this fall in Canada. It was not a typical wedding. A helicopter flew us to this plateau thousands of feet above sea level. It was the second smallest wedding I've ever done. Including the bride and the groom, 2 witnesses and the person performing the wedding are necessary. I've only done that once. It was about 10 years ago in the Old Market with a childhood friend of mine and her fiance. Amber was the photographer and our worship leader at the time, AJ, did the music. It was December and people watched us from a distance, kind of like a pop-up wedding before pop-up anything was cool. Now back to the mountain. The bride and the groom are friends of mine. I would not have flown in a helicopter if they weren't. The photographer and videographer they're as good as I've ever worked with, and the helicopter pilot did his job. We made it up and down the mountain safely. There was this distinct beauty to this wedding. It was so peaceful, surreal. It was cold. But it was perfect for the bride and the groom. They loved nature and climbing mountains and exploring. The views could not have been any better. They had this handsome, winsome, and moderately funny pastor there as well. The photographer and videographer, they worked hard to catch every moment. After the wedding, there were a few thousand more photos as the sun was setting. Then we flew down to the lodge and the banquet began. The 6 of us had some potato chips. There was a fresh baked loaf of bread, some olives and salami, and heart-shaped strawberry cakes. I took a photo of the bride and the groom with the 3 others, and then it was over. This one though was different than any other wedding I've done, and it was certainly different than the weddings that happened during the time of Jesus. Leander talked about a wedding in week 1 where Jesus turned water into wine and gave us a glimpse of what he can do in our lives. Weddings are the biggest parties of somebody's life. People would miss youth sports and concerts and work to attend them back in the day. Most weddings I do today have a lot of moving parts. I'm in charge of just 30 minutes of the wedding day, and I'm quite good with that. There's the hair and the makeup, not for me, but like for the wedding party. And the photos and the first look and more photos. Then there's the trolley or a bus. The wedding party goes and they drive around so that they can take more photos. Then there's a big party. The couple gets introduced, the food, the speeches, the cake, the dancing. So think about this question. Can you imagine if the bride and the groom went to all the work of setting the invitations, planning the party, hiring the caterer, hiring the DJ, and renting the facility, and then nobody came? They would be devastated, dejected, hurt, probably angry. Jesus was having dinner at a Pharisee's house, and he told a story just like that. He told a story about the kingdom of heaven. A man once gave a great banquet and invited lots of guests. But when the banquet was ready, he sent a servant to tell the guest, "Everything is ready, please come." One guest after another started making excuses. Now, the thought of a wedding where nobody shows up, it's crazy. It just wouldn't happen, would it? Well, it did. The parable continues. The first one said, I bought some land and I've got to look it over, so please excuse me. Another guest said, I brought 5 teams of oxen and I need to try them out, please excuse me. Still another guest said, I'm just now married and I can't be there. So the excuses, the people are invited to a huge party, and the excuses, they just start rolling in. I have a property to manage, I need to work, I got family stuff going on. Now, the excuses, none of these are bad, and actually they're all good things. But the field owner, the rancher, the new husband, all missed out on the banquet, the biggest party of the year, because they were distracted and busy. The field would still have been there, and the landowner certainly would have had people to help him. The work wasn't going anywhere either. The oxen could have gotten by on their own for a night or 2. And the wife, she could have come to the party with him. And if anybody understands the importance of the banquet, it should have been the guy who just got married. Here's what happened. They all missed out on the best because they were distracted and busy with pretty good. And this still happens, I have to go to the gym in the morning, so I don't have time to read my Bible. I'm so busy with work, I don't have time to pray. I'm traveling again, so I can't make it to worship. My kid has basketball practice on Tuesday night, and I can't make it to my house church. But God invites, God keeps inviting, and God has an open invitation. Jesus continues. The servant told the master what happened, so the master became angry. And he said, go as fast as you can to every street and alley in town. Bring everyone who is poor or paralyzed or blind or lame. So who is it that hangs out in the alleys? It's not the best of the best. It's not the landowners. It's not the business owners. It's not the newlyweds. It's the poor, the crippled, the blind, the lame. Now, I'm thinking that some of us are alley dwellers. We may not be poor, but because of our past, we don't feel rich in God's love. We may not be crippled, but fears about our future immobilize us, and we don't believe we belong at the banquet. We may not be blind, but because somebody rejected or ignored us, we are failing to see why we would ever get an invitation to the party. Many of us hang out in the alley at least some of the time. I know I do. The master is like, okay, I have some really good news for you alley dwellers. I'm throwing a banquet. It's called the Kingdom of Heaven. I have come to give a rich and a satisfying and a life full of joy and community and peace. Get out of the alley, walk into the doors of the banquet hall, and leave your failures and hurts and your fears. You just won't need them here. That is some really good news. Have you ever had really good news before? What do you want to do when you have good news? You want to share it. It's a girl. I got a hole in one. I got an A in a class. Gas is under $3 a gallon. It's good news. We share good news. When the servant returned, he said, Master, I've done what you told me to do, and there is still plenty of room for more people. His master told him, go out behind the hedges and along the country roads and invite people in so that my house will be full. I love those words. There is still room for more. The servants are told to go wherever and find whoever. These people in transition from on the country lanes, traveling from one place to the next, one place in life to the next. People ashamed and hiding behind the hedges in life. God is telling us to go wherever and find whoever, invite them to the biggest party ever so that the house can be full. The invited becomes the inviter, the loved becomes the loving, the grace recipient becomes the grace giver. God is telling us to go wherever and find whoever and invite them to the biggest party ever so that the house can be full. The alleys are full of people who need healing and hope. Behind the hedges are people needing forgiveness and grace. People are wandering through the country lanes looking for community and purpose. Jesus is the banquet host. We are the servants. He is telling us to go wherever and find whoever and invite them to the biggest party ever so that the house can be full. The most important part of your house church or group or even your individual reflection has not happened yet. Go over the questions. Have the book be your companion this week. Be honest with yourself and be honest with others. Listen well to how God is speaking to you. Talk and pray about your participation in the banquet and inviting others to the banquet so that the house will be full. Have a great discussion with each other and with God, and we'll see you here next week.